And it's true that I did get accepted to Yale for a PhD program. It was a miracle. I don't know how that happened. But this was when I was in Ukraine. I was there in Ukraine. I went to BU, so I went backwards in time. I went to BU, Terriers. Then I went to Ukraine, helped with the church there. I was a sort of a missionary. And then miraculously, I'm here back in the States again. Come on. I heard that there are people from Brown and maybe there's someone from Harvard here. Pay attention, you might learn something today. No. We're all smart, not everywhere. All right, go to the next one. Wow. You know, what is reality? You know, it's as if I'm Morpheus. If I were to hand you like a couple pills or something, right? Like, what am I supposed to do here with that prompt? How am I supposed to answer that question? I actually think it's very simple, reality, as I asked some people last night. And this is the answer that I think is the clearest. Go to the next slide. Reality, I'm going to follow you here, is everything that is true, or everything that is real, or everything that's actual. And that's incredibly simple, right? Reality is everything that is true. Sounds pretty basic. The thing is that some of us, we have different perceptions of reality. Go to the next slide. How do we understand reality? How do we find out? How do we see reality? How do we see what's true? How do we see what's actual? Let's go to the next slide. This is a little mind image I put together. I call it the picture of reality. And basically, the picture of reality, everything that's true is inside that circle. So everything that's reality, everything that's real, everything that's true, you can put it inside of that circle. The picture of reality. All right, go to the next slide. Here, that's everything you think is reality. Right? Everything you think is true. Now, there are obviously some things you think are true and are actually true. Right? I hope, right? There are some things that you think are true and are actually true. And that's where your circle crosses into the other circle, and what you think is reality is actually reality. Obviously, there are some things outside that are inside of your circle, but outside of the circle of reality, that unfortunately are less than true. Right? And we can agree upon that, right? You don't know everything 100% of the time. You're not always correct. No one is ever always correct, right? Go to the next one. And obviously, I have my own perception of reality. Things that I think are true. We agree upon some of these things. Other things we don't agree upon. And some of them are all true, right? Yeah. This you can explain this to like a kindergartner, right? This is very clear, right? Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so. Oh, wait. Sorry. So, we're going to watch a video. And I want you to think. Do some of these people have the correct perception of reality? I love this clip. It really demonstrates that people have a different image of reality than what really is reality. Go ahead.
It's time for something, I don't know if this will be educational, but the president is overseas. He's visiting Belgium, England, Scotland, and then his pal Putin in Finland. It's a big trip with many important ramifications. It's imperative that America has strong relationships with and knowledge about people in other lands. And that responsibility extends to all of us, not just the president. So we came up with a test. The test is very simple. Went out on the street, we asked people who were passing by to name a country on a map. That's it. We had a map. We said, name a country, any country. And here's how that went.
Honestly, my geography is so horrible. I can't even do anything.
Oh my goodness!
Is this South Africa?
Oh, damn. I'm silly. When I was going to watch it in high school, Africa. I know South Africa is over here somewhere.
Country on this map. Yeah. That's a continent. Yeah. Honduras is...
To be fair, he just learned that. He's in like 3rd grade, right? I mean, he had a test on that yesterday, all right? That's why he knows this stuff. But people think things are real, and they're not real. People think things are truth, and they're not even close to the truth, right? That poor girl, she said, is this one Europe? She's going to Australia. Some people are out of touch with reality, right? It's their circle of truth, it doesn't even come close. It doesn't touch reality, right? But different people perceive different things. And there's a slew of things that I could say right now that we all agree upon. Fire is hot. We can all agree without exception, that's true. We are at MIT right now. Woo! Yeah, we can all agree upon that, right? All right, things we might not be able to agree upon, like Tom Brady is the best athlete of all time. Hashtag go Sox. You know, like, that's something that we might not all agree on. And that's okay, but there are truths to things, and we agree on some things and don't agree on other things. So the next question that we have is, let me follow along a little bit. How do we build our picture of reality? How do you figure out what's true and what's not true? How do you make that decision? The next slide. So again, this is my own little contraption. You won't find this in a book anywhere. Although last night I realized it's very similar to Descartes, if anyone's ever read anything of his. But I call it the certainty meter, right? And the certainty meter is what you need to fill in order to say anything is true, or to say anything is real, or to say that anything is part of your reality. Anything is part of reality. You need to have enough of these two things. You need to have enough evidence, and you need to have enough faith. And if you have both of these things, I think we're able to say, yep, that's true. That is reality. But you need both of them. You need evidence, and you need faith. Let's look at some examples. For example, my name is Max. I have a lot of evidence, right? I have a lot of evidence. I have a lot of papers that have my name on it and stuff like that. I have my driver's license and my passport. I have lots of evidence. My mom has been calling me Max for years. There's lots of evidence. I need very little faith to say, my name's Max. That is reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hopefully you guys don't need a lot of faith. Hopefully you also have a lot of evidence why your name is your name. Waze will always get me where I need to go. You can put Waze, you can use Google Maps, Navigate, any navigator that you use. I like Waze.
Come on.
I have a lot of evidence that Waze will get me where I want to go. Because every time, it gets me where I want it to go. I don't need a lot of faith with that. I don't know how it works. So that's why there is a little bit of faith, right? I don't know how the computer does it. It talks to a satellite somewhere. It knows exactly where I am all the time. It's a little weird. Yeah, I don't know how that works. That is faith in that GPS system. And I have faith that it's going to get me where I need to go. Let's go to the next one. Abe Lincoln was a real person. I really like this one because I bet that almost no one here has actually looked for evidence that Abe Lincoln was a real person. This is how your perception of Abe Lincoln goes. You're in 3rd grade, some person tells you Abe Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States, that he wore a hat and had a beard, and you were like, yeah, that sounds true. And you totally believe that. You were like, that is true. Okay, that's part of reality. Yeah, he got shot, there was Civil War, all sorts of crazy stuff. You believe that. Why? You have no evidence. You have so little evidence. You have some textbook that somebody wrote that you don't know this person, you know nothing about them, and you just trusted them.
Oh, man.
There's a ton of faith in saying that Abe Lincoln was a real person. It's legit. And there's a lot of things that are like this, actually. And I want you to, first thing, I want you to go home and think about this. What do you actually have evidence for? What do you put faith in? I think it's a good activity. But another question is, I'll go to the next one. What actually looks like this? Is there anything that you think is true without any evidence?
The earth is flat.
The earth is flat. The earth is flat. That's a good one. That's a good one. I would argue, that those people have a little tiny shred of evidence. For instance, they don't see the curvature of the earth. And they have a lot of faith. Right? They have a lot of faith and very little evidence that the world is flat. Because if they started to accumulate evidence, they might realize that it's in fact spherical, right? But what is like this? And I would tell you that almost nothing is like this. Everything that you say is true, you have some piece of evidence that led you to that. And I call this blind faith. That is the definition of blind faith. You think it's true, you think it's reality, but the only reason you think it's the case is because of your faith. There's no evidence involved with that. And I challenge you to think deeply about this. If there's anything in your life that's actually like that, I don't think there really is in my life many things that I accept on blind faith. Let's go to the next one. Is there anything that's like this? This is important. Is there anything that you think is true and you have 100% evidence, 100% proof? You are totally and completely certain based off of only evidence. Go to the next one. I call this proof. Go to the next one. Right. Is anything like this? In science, we have this fancy word, it's to postulate, or to give a postulate. And so I'm giving you a postulate right now. My postulate is that everything requires a little faith. There is nothing in your life that is completely evidence. The only thing that you can really do this with is math. The only thing you can really do this with is math. Because you can have a mathematical proof, and it's logical, and you can say, well, A plus B equals C. So you can do things like that. That is logic. That's about the only thing that you can have complete evidence for. Go to the next one. And in fact, as a scientist, I know that this is actually what science looks like. All of science is in this. You collect a whole bunch of evidence, and you just go, yeah, that happened like 7,000 times. It's probably going to happen the next time. That's all what science is. I'm being dead serious, okay? That's all what biology is, okay? It's like, okay, this happened a whole bunch of times to a whole bunch of frogs. It's probably going to happen in the next one. That's all what science is, okay? And there is faith involved with that. Because if I'm going to take the next step, I can't just keep on doing this experiment until I have 99% evidence, 99.9, 99.9999999. I'll never get there because the next one could be the one that breaks everything.
Yeah.
Right? The 10 billionth frog I do this experiment on could be the one that's an outlier, that breaks everything. And so nothing is like this. Even science is like this. So don't be fooled by yourself or by anyone that science is some sort of mystical thing that has proof that guides everything and evidence that makes everything true. No, it's just a method. Science is a method of acquiring evidence and saying, yeah, that's reasonable, that's true. Does that make sense? Yeah. Was anyone's mind blown by that? Yes. Maybe somebody. Right, yeah. Let's go to the next one. So now we have this incredible tool. We have this certainty meter, and we know what the certainty meter is made of. We know that it's made of evidence and it's made of faith, and we can apply this to Christianity. Okay. Right? We applied it to Abe Lincoln. That was easy. Knocked that one out of the park. We applied it to my name, and now we can apply it to Christianity. And the big question is Christianity blind faith? Which kind of looks a little bit like this. The next one. Which one of these is Christianity? Which one of these is Christianity? Is Christianity just this thing that we accepted as reality because we have a bunch of faith? Or is Christianity something that people accept as reality because there's a large amount of evidence and some faith? And I have a postulate. I have another postulate. Christianity is not blind faith. That's my postulate, and I'm going to try to show you that right now. How does that sound?
Come on, bro!
All right, amen. The Bible. All right, so the Bible is clearly, fortunately, and maybe unfortunately, my strongest piece of evidence. It's by far, for me, I feel like it's one of my two strongest pieces of evidence. We're going to look at two. But the first one is the Bible. The Bible is an incredible piece of evidence. And so, the first thing I want to just take a look at is this is an old book. Right? And maybe not all of you know how old it, well, you should know how old this book is, but go to the next one. And what we need to do is look at the manuscripts and compare it to some other ancient texts. I think it'll give you some good perspective about how reliable this book is today. So let's go to the next one. So this is a bunch of, I just said Aristotle, I mean the works of Aristotle. Caesar, the works of Caesar, he wrote this book, The Gallic Wars, it's very famous. Homer, what did Homer write? The Iliad, wow, yeah, okay, great. And then there's the Bible, right? And so what I have here is the list of years, and the years indicate the time span between when that person passed away, or when it was written, and our first copy that we have. And the number of manuscripts is the number of copies that we have before the Renaissance, before really science started to, we could make copies easily, and there was the printing press and everything like that. These are how many copies of stuff we have, and how long it was between when it was written and the first copy we have. It's funny, Aristotle, who here has read in class, maybe you took a philosophy class, they made you read something, who's read something from Aristotle? Yeah, actually a surprisingly large amount of people have read something from Aristotle. And what's interesting is that we say it's from Aristotle, no questions asked. Do you see it? Are we looking at the same number? 1,400 years is the time difference between when Aristotle lived and the first copy of something written by Aristotle. That could have been changed. That could be written by a completely different person. We have no idea. We're pretty much just guessing. This sounds like Aristotle. I think this is Aristotle. The Iliad, who no one would ever question if it's written by Homer, was still 500 years after Homer died, is the earliest copy of the Iliad that we have, and we have 600 copies, which is a lot. Now compare that to the Bible. The Bible stands out. It's stark. There is no comparison here. The Bible, the earliest pieces and fragments of the Bible that we have are typically 100 years after the person who wrote it lived. The earliest copy that we have is only 100 years old after when that person wrote it. Right. That's incredible. And the amount of copies and pieces of evidence that we have to put it together, 10,000, it's actually more than 10,000 manuscripts that we have to corroborate and put together and show that the Bible, this book that you have on your phones or in hard copy, is really what it was 2,000 years ago. You can put your money on it. This book is what it says it is.
Come on.
Let's go to the next one. Purpose. When you look at any book, or you look at any piece of evidence, it's important to think of what was the purpose of it in its day. And the Bible has lots of different books in it, I'm sure you're aware, and some of them have different purposes, right? Some of them are prophecy, some of them are teaching, but some of them straight up tell you what the purpose of that book is. And let's look at one of them. Let's go to the first scripture. This is from the Gospel according to Luke. So this is Luke's Gospel. Luke says in the beginning of his Gospel, he says, "Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you have been taught." Luke was first and foremost an ancient historian.
Come on.
The Gospel of Luke is a carefully written account, a collection of eyewitnesses put together so that you could have enough evidence to say that you are certain of the things you have heard. That is the purpose of the Gospel of Luke. It's begging to be used as evidence that Christianity is real, that Jesus really rose from the dead, that miracles happen. It's begging for it. Go to the next scripture. Sorry, next slide. Oh, sorry, Mike. It's not saints. Gotta remember that. So, 2 Peter, chapter 1. Peter says, "For we did not follow cleverly devised stories when we told you about the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ in power, but we were eyewitnesses of his majesty. He received honor and glory from God the Father when the voice came to him from the majestic glory, saying, 'This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased.' We ourselves heard this voice that came from heaven when we were with him on the sacred mountain." Peter is saying, I was there. I saw these things. It's evidence. I saw it, and I'm writing it down so that you can know these things are true also. And these stories that you're reading about or you're hearing about, they are not cleverly devised stories. What do you think? We got together and wrote a bunch of this stuff together and thought, oh, this is going to be fun. Peter's saying, this is real stuff. We really saw it. This is history. Let's go to the next one. This is John. John is saying why he wrote his gospel. He says, Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written. These signs, these things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Amen. John says, I'm not writing this book to be fun. I'm writing this book so that you know what I saw. So that you can be certain of the things that you've been told. That's the purpose of so many things written in the Bible. It's so that you can read it and you can see real evidence. Amen. And from the manuscripts that we've collected and we know that it's reliable. Let's go next one. Obviously, if we're talking about the ancient world, we're talking about archaeology. Archaeology is the study of the ancient world. Maybe you've heard of this guy, maybe you haven't. His name is Sir William Mitchell Ramsey. He was a professor at Oxford University. He's a professor of archaeology. And he started his career with the thesis, with the hypothesis, that the New Testament was historically incorrect. It was his goal, actually, to go out and find evidence against the Bible. He was almost certain that this was what it was going to be like. And so what he did is he opened up the Bible and he started reading, and he looked where a city might be. He went to that place, he did a dig or an excavation, or however you want the archaeological terms. He did a dig, he looked there, he searched there, and he thought, I'm not going to find anything. But he found a city. He thought, oh, well, maybe just that one. Let me try a different one. And so he goes to a different part of the Bible, and he figures out where that was located and what the Bible said about that city. And he went to that city and he did a dig. And guess what he found? Another city! And he did this again and again and again. And that was pretty much this guy's whole career. That made him world famous. He's pretty much one of the most famous Greco-Roman historians and archaeologists of all time. And he used the Bible to find his way. Let's see what he says about the book of Acts. He says, further study of Acts showed that it could bear the most minute scrutiny as an authority of fact for the Aegean world, and that it was written with such judgment, skill, art, and perception of truth as to be a model of historical statement. It is marvelously concise, and yet marvelously lucid. Wow. Said like a true Oxford professor, right? That doesn't just flow out like that, right? But yeah, he trusted the New Testament because he saw that it worked over and over and over and over and over again, and he realized that it is historically accurate. And what's interesting is we can't just say, well, it got the cities right, but it didn't get the events correct. No. This is correct.
Come on.
The things that it say happened. The miracles that are recorded are real miracles. The things that they saw and the things that they heard really were there. So the next one. So of course we talked about the evidence, the things that people have already put together, the things that you can look in the Bible, the things that you can go on Google and search, and I hope that you do search it. But there's also a very important part of evidence, and it's your personal experience, right?
Yeah.
You know that fire is hot, not just because you read it in some book, but you feel its warmth.
Yeah.
You can cook things over it. Maybe you've had an unfortunate, mishap at some point. You touched something that, was hot or that was near fire or something that burns you.
Right.
You had a personal experience with those things. And in Christianity, it's very similar. Because the Bible actually makes claims, and we can play up those claims and see if they live out in our lives. Let's go next slide. So here this is Jesus. And he says to the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, "If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Jesus says that when you hold to his teachings, when you live out the things that he taught, you will know the truth. How exactly does that work? When someone talks to you about something and you haven't tried it before, you don't have a really great grasp or understanding of that. You don't really know that thing.
Yeah.
I could share with you a lot about Kiev, about Ukraine, about the Russian language. You don't really know much about it, though. I'm sharing it with you. Someone could tell me about rock climbing and how much fun it is and lots of other things, and until I really go rock climbing, there's not a lot of things I can really say about it. And there's not a lot of personal experience there that lends itself to evidence.
Right.
But here Jesus is saying that, his teachings, the Bible, that you can hold to them, you can try them, you can live them out. And he's telling us what the consequence of living them out is. You will know the truth. You will know that this is reality when you hold to the teachings, when you live this out. I can speak to this personally, and many of you maybe can, that what my life was before I became a Christian was radically different than what it is today. I know that the changes that I made an impact in my relationships and friendships and the way I lived and so much more. I'm certain that I wouldn't have gone to Ukraine and met my wife and met so many other amazing people and done things that I only could dream of if I hadn't have tried living out Jesus' teachings.
Right.
And when I lived them out and saw the impact and result that they made in my life, that is evidence.
Right.
That's a personal experience.
Come on, bro.
And maybe you're someone who's looked at the Bible a lot, but you've never tried it. I want you to know that's not how it works. The Bible is very open about this. It says you have to go out and try it. You have to hold to the teachings. You have to practice this. And when you practice this, you'll know the truth. You'll know that this is reality. Let's look at the next one.
Come on,
We
bro.
need to save your applause till the end. Matthew chapter 7. So Jesus is talking here. He says, this is the promise that Jesus gives, and it lends itself amazingly to personal experience and evidence. He says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds. And to the one who knocks, the door will be open. Guys, we can test this.
Yeah.
You can test this right now. You can test this tonight. You can test it tomorrow. You can test it whenever you want. This is something Jesus is giving you a promise and begging you to try this.
Yeah.
He's saying, seek me and you will find me. He says, ask and it will be given to you. Pray about something.
Wow.
See what happens. The interesting part about seeking you will find is I've met so many atheists and I've asked them, how much have you actually looked into this? How much have you actually looked into the Bible? How much have you actually prayed? Their typical answer is, not a lot. Maybe they have read a little bit, but they've certainly never sought. They've certainly never asked. They've certainly never knocked at the door and said, God, are you there? I have a really hard time respecting someone who's an atheist who hasn't put any time into this book. I can't respect you. You're saying that it's a certainty that God doesn't exist, and you haven't looked at the biggest piece of evidence. You haven't opened this book at all.
Come on.
And then if you have opened it, you haven't followed it at all. It straight out tells you that you need to try this to realize that this is the truth.
Yeah.
And so I challenge you, if you are someone who has never looked at this or is thinking about it, or maybe you haven't thought about it, I want you to think about it. I want you to try it. I want you to open this book up.
Come on, dude.
Let's go to the next one. Faith. So we talked a lot about evidence, right? There's a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
There's lots of biblical, lots of textual evidence. And there's the evidence of personal experience, which I'm sure so many of you have had. But then there's faith. And we can't forget faith.
Come on.
We can't forget faith because, as I said, you can't get 100% evidence for anything.
Yeah.
Faith is crucial to saying that Christianity is reality. For the next slide. In Hebrews, it's an amazing scripture.
Amen.
It says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. Whoa! The Bible is not blind to this. The Bible realizes you need faith. The Bible never said that you're going to have proof. I've talked to lots of people and they said, you know what, Max, I'll become a Christian when I see proof. I say, well, it's going to take you a long time. I don't have proof. I need faith. Go to the next slide. Evidence. It's what we actually see. It's what we actually experience. And faith is the confidence in things we do not see. That's straight from the Bible. That's real life.
Come on, bro.
Give me 1 second. Composure. And so we've looked at a lot of this. Go to the next one. We've looked at a lot of this, right? We've looked at a lot of evidence. We've thought about what is important about evidence. What is important about faith? How does faith and evidence work together to make our picture of reality? How do we understand what's true and not true? We've looked at some evidence for the Bible. And to be honest, there's so much more than I could ever share with you.
Yeah.
There's so much more.
Yeah.
And I wish I could share it with you. It's just, we need an infinite amount of time. There's so much more here.
Yeah.
We talk about faith. Faith is important for everything you do. And it's especially important in the things that you can't see right now. The resurrection of Christ. You know, you're not going to be able to do what Thomas did and touch him after his resurrection. Heaven, that's something you hope for. You might see it, but it'll be a long time from now. Those are things we need faith in. Let's go to the next slide. And so ultimately, there are some decisions that need to be made.
Come on, bro.
Faith is necessary for living. It's necessary for everything you do. It's necessary to understand that fire's hot or that Abraham Lincoln was a real person. Don't expect proof from anything. Don't expect 100% evidence. You won't find it. Christianity, as we saw today, is not just faith. There's a lot of evidence to it. Look into it. Spend some time. Go onto Wikipedia. Read about stuff. Figure it out. Read the Bible. See what these amazing biblical historians said about Jesus and about all those other things it said. Read what Jesus talked about and how he challenged us to live these truths out and to see how they work in our lives.
Amen.
If you already know a lot of this stuff, I want to challenge you and say this. There's lots of people around you that don't know this.
Come on, bro.
Yeah.
If you're confident in this, I want you to share it with someone.
Amen.
You shouldn't be ashamed of it. There's a lot of evidence. You believe in something that has a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
What's shameful about that? What's weird about that? What's weird is that these people don't get it. That's what's weird. That's what's wrong about it. So share it with someone. If you're here and you haven't thought about it a lot, start. Start thinking about it. Start taking it seriously.
Come on, bro.
If you've been looking at it for a long time, and maybe some of you have looked at it for a long time, and you've amassed lots of evidence, and you're waiting for this last little shred of evidence to push you into certainty and believing that it's true and it's reality, I want to challenge you that faith is crucial.
That's right.
And that the phrase leap of faith, there really is a leap of faith.
Right.
You need to have faith. And when you have faith in something and you think something is true, it leads to action.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't think something's true and not put it into practice.
Right.
You must take action. So if you've been studying the Bible and looking at something for a long time and can't figure it out, pray for faith. Look for personal experience. Look back at the evidence that you have and take action. Guys, I don't think Christianity is blind faith. I think it's completely reality. That's all I can share with you today. Guys, we thank Max for all that he's